told him my biggest secret.
To have a young man on the couch. I'm very, very excited about having this guy on the couch with me. Even though we've run into each other a million times and we've been at the same events and we have the same purpose and initiative for our movements, he's never sat on the couch. We've never sat down and had an actual conversation about where he's been. I've heard him speak and he's heard me speak, but we've not done the hear thing. So coming up next is a young man who started his own foundation. And I'm very excited to have him here on the couch during KASSIE. Okay, good. Now relax. There you go.
I'm a big fellow. Will
That's
this couch
okay.
hold me?
Oh, you didn't watch the video. There was a guy like 3 times bigger than you. He was so big he couldn't even bend over to sign the couch. He had to pick the couch up to sign it. All right, so my guest is here. Hi, Jamie Savris.
Savris.
I'm so sorry. I don't.
32 years. I'm used to it.
Just call him Jamie S. Okay, so Jamie is here on the couch with me, and Jamie is the founder of A Voice for the Innocent. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, I got that right. Yay. Tell us about A Voice. Well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
I'm
to
happy be
KASSIE
here.
Live. I'm so glad you are here. Tell us about A Voice for the Innocent.
So we are a community of support for people who are affected by sexual violence. We offer an online community where people can anonymously share their story. They go on and they pick their own username and they can tell their story in as much or as little detail as they want. And then there's a community of people there to respond and listen to them. And, if necessary, we provide resources that are available to them in their city. We try to help them navigate that and find that. And then we spend a lot of time doing outreach. So we go and do as many events as we can. And a lot of them are not places that you would necessarily expect to find an organization like us.
Like?
We do different concerts and shows. We do the Pride Parade and Festival every year to reach out to that community. We do Christian music festivals. We do comic conventions. Anywhere if there's a large number of people there, we want to be there, and we want to be there to let them know that there's help for them, there's resources for them if they need it, or people they know and love as well. So, we do like college resource fairs and stuff like that as well. But we try to go specifically where the conversation may not already be happening. So.
And you're right. I mean, some of the places that you mentioned, I'm like, really?
Yep.
There's a place for us, I guess you could say, as advocates there. Usually we do end up at tabling events and conferences and things like that. But concerts and all of those other things.
Well, my history, that's my history is music and the band scene. So.
An artist.
Yep.
There you go. An artist.
So that's just the world I knew, So when we created an organization, I set it up like I set up a band, minus the music. You know what I mean? But then we would go to shows, and those were the people that I knew that were in front of people. So I said, will you tell people about this? And then they did, and that's kind of where our start came from.
So how are you received when you're at like non-mental health events, I guess you can call them?
We are almost always warmly received. We've had very few people that mutter under their breath, why is something like that here?
Okay.
One comes to, and nobody's been combative or aggressive. One particular instance that I can remember is a guy at a comic convention grumbled that we were there because we weren't a comic booth, and he grumbled while his wife was buying one of our shirts. So, yeah.
Like a slap in the face.
So, really, most of the time, because 1 in 3 women, 1 in 6 men, been affected. So when you apply that to the couple thousand people that might be at a convention, or the thousands of people at a parade, the hundreds of people at a show, there's people there, and almost everybody there's going to at least know somebody, be close to somebody that's been hurt. So, and we're there to reach them and say we're there to help. So we don't get a lot of pushback. Most people are like, thanks for what you're doing, good work. And sometimes people take information, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just stop over and ask what we are and then walk away. That's all right too. We're there to have any level of conversation people want to have. So
Jamie, with a girl's name, kind of.
No, it is. It is.
Okay, so Jamie with a girl's name, but you're obviously a guy.
Yes.
Why did some man start A Voice for the Innocent?
I was sexually abused as a kid. And for about 3 years by my dad, and My parents were never married, so I would be at my dad's like every other weekend, you know. And finally it got to a point where I just, I decided I would tell. I think I spent a couple years expecting I was going to get in trouble, you know, if I told what was happening. And finally I decided to risk it, and I didn't want to go there anymore. And I told my mom, and she was immensely supportive. Instantly told me that it wasn't my fault, that of course I didn't have to go there, that I didn't do anything wrong, and she loved me. And then she called him and told him that I wasn't going there anymore, and that he had 24 hours to tell his wife, you know what I mean? And then she put me into counseling, and they said, you know, we're going to have to report this to the police. She said, you know, I was hoping you would, you know what I mean? And then
Okay, wait. Don't
Yeah.
tell us what happened next, because I want to go back because, like I said, Jamie and I have shared platforms before, and they do, Voice for the Innocent hosts a speak out for like most of the year. Like you're taking a break for the summer because you're going on tour,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so they do this speak out thing, and initially Jamie invited me to come out and share, and it was actually one of the first times that I openly shared a lot of things about my sexual abuse and molestation. And when we went to the last one, Jamie shared about his story, and that's what made me want to invite him to the couch. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you're skipping over.
I don't want to overstay my welcome. I know you got so many good guests today.
That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. No, but I want to know. I mean, because when you were young, you know what you went through when you were saying that you know, you and your dad were creating this bond, you know, you were doing the fishing thing, and you're like, yeah, you know, I'm liking this. I got this whole other family with my dad who had, I guess, children with another wife or something like that.
Yep.
And then your dad started moving in another direction.
Yeah.
And then the way you were, tell us.
Okay,
tell
all
us.
right, okay. So for the first part of my life, I didn't have much contact with him. He worked at a fast food restaurant, and sometimes we'd stop in there and see him, and, you know, it was wasn't much. You know, maybe, I feel like it had to be more than this, but I feel like there were like 3 or 4 times I saw him. And then it was, you know, so I grew up asking, how come I don't have a dad? You know, and my mom would tell me, you do have a dad. He just doesn't, he loves you. He just doesn't know how to be a dad, you know. And that was a fine answer for many years, you know. It was just me and my mom. She didn't have any other kids. And my mom, you know, was my best friend. And we grew up poor, and we grew up on welfare, but somehow I had better Christmases than all the other kids. And I was always on, if I wanted to be on a sports team, there was no, she'd make it happen somehow, you know, and pay the fees. And so, you know, she always made sure that I came first for her. And then my grandma ran into my dad at a store one day, and pretty much he said he expressed interest in being around me again. So she gave him my mom's number. I think somehow numbers were exchanged, and they talked. And my mom pretty much said, you know, there was like a 2-hour discussion. I guess my mom was pretty much like, look, you know, if you're going to come around, you're around, and you don't back out of birthday parties. And if you say you're coming to see him, you're coming to see him. And
Be a man of
you
your
know,
word.
exactly, yeah. So and he agreed. I got to say, for a long time, he was. You know, that's what he did. And so then I started staying over there for a night. Sometimes, you know, which turned into a weekend sometimes, you know. And then that turned into every other weekend. I was over at my dad's. And he took a job delivering a paper. And it was 7 nights a week. And, you know, he would get up every night at like 1 a.m., you know, and when you deliver a paper, they come not already stuffed in the bags, you know, so you got to go to the sorting facility.
You have to collate them.
Yep, and it's a whole process, and you
yeah,
make a little
yeah.
assembly line, and sometimes team up with the person next to you, and they help with yours, you know. So we would do that, and we'd bag them, and then they have these big carts, and we wheel them out to the van, and then, you know, you fill up a Ford Windstar with no seats in it until it is completely filled in the back, you know. And then we were on our way, and we'd, one of the things that always sticks out to me is I remember this one particular BP that I still drive by sometimes, and we would stop there, and he'd get himself a coffee, and he'd get me a French vanilla cappuccino, you know. And I'm not much of a country music fan, but there's still, like, you know, some of the 90s country songs. They still stick with me because I loved them so much, and we'd be listening to them at, you know, 3 in the morning,
Those
driving
are good
around.
memories.
Yeah. And like you said, the fishing, the camping. But this one particular routine was just, you know, despite waking up super early, you know, it was fun for me, and we'd go out and we'd do this. And it was that way for a while. And then started be when we would get home from that, everyone in the house would be asleep. He started showing me adult materials, and he started doing things to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was this all of a sudden added on part to our routine.
Did he ever say why he did that? Why he showed that stuff to you? Was this his way of making you a man, or what?
I was at an age where I was, you know, commenting on if I thought a girl was cute, or commenting, you know, and it almost does seem like, you know, that he was more like, well, if you think she's cute, I gotta show you this, the kind of thing, you know, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not making any excuses for him. I don't know what his thoughts were with that. I know that when my mom confronted him, he was very. He admitted it, and he said he was sorry. And he asked if he could speak to me on the phone, and she let him, but she stayed on the line. Right. You know, those old landlines. You know, and she let him, and he said, "I'm really sorry. You know, if you had just told me to stop." And she's cut him off. Was like, absolutely not. But my mom has since told me, you know, now I'm an adult, and that part of the reason he wasn't sent away in jail is that apparently his psychiatric analysis or something, I don't know what, but has never let him be past a 16-year-old. I don't know how much I buy it. I don't know how much I care, you know. But it almost seems as if somehow he wanted to convince people that he didn't know he was doing anything wrong, you know. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, and that's not my struggle to have to figure out, you know.
One of the things I remember you sharing were when you said that your dad was supposed to pick you up, and you were with your best friend.
Yes.
And you were telling your friend, you know, I don't want to go with my dad. Please don't let me go with my dad, or don't.
Yeah, she had told me because I walked home from school. It was a Friday. Walked home from school with him and my mom. And my mom and his mom were best friends, and he was my best friend, you know. And so I was over his house while she was finishing up her day at work or whatever that would have been at the time. And she said, you know, call your dad, make arrangements to go over there. And I was like, okay. So I told him, like, don't let me call, you know, knowing that she would come and ask me when she was picking me up, what are we doing? Am I taking you there? Is he picking you up? Did you call your dad? And I told her no, you know, and I'll tell you why in the car. And so she said, okay. And, you know, talked to my friend's mom for a few more minutes, and then we left. And she said, why didn't you call your dad? And I said, well, he's been doing this stuff to me, and he's been showing me these movies, you know. And the thing that I find so interesting looking back is I was very educated in a proper way, a healthy way, about sex, about, you know, what sexual harassment was, sexual abuse. I mean, all facets. My mom would buy me educational books to read on my own, written for kids, you know, and I would read them, and she'd be open for conversation, and she'd be there to talk if needed. Sometimes she'd prompt the conversation, other times not. I knew what was probably more than a lot of kids my age. For some reason, when I told her what had been happening over there, and she said, her response was, you mean he's been sexually abusing you? It didn't click until that moment, like, oh. You know, I never assigned that word to what was happening, you know.
Made the connection.
I never did. And despite knowing everything, you know, despite knowing as much as I could possibly know at that age, somehow I didn't recognize it in my own world, you know.
So how important, I mean, because now, you know, I have a teenage son, and if I bring up the subject of something inappropriate or things like that, he's like, I know, Mom, you know, we don't have to talk about it, Mom. But as other parents who are watching, what did it mean to you as a teenager, a young man, to know that you were able to trust your mother with that information and that she believed you? How important was it that she believed you? Because a lot of us don't have that same story. Mine, when I did say something, I was blamed for what happened to me. But your mom supported you.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you?
It is 100% all the difference. You know, when that first person is told by somebody, you know, first off, that's a big privilege and honor. Like, that person that's telling must think highly of the person, and you know, enough to tell them this for the first time. And your response is literally paving the way for who else they're going to tell. You know, if I had told my mom and she had shut me down or told me it was my fault or told me this is how it is in our family or said we don't talk about such things, whatever it might look like, if she had given that response, I wouldn't have ever said anything else again.
And you would end up dysfunctional 40-some years. Hello? I'm just,
right.
and it makes a difference. Parents, when your children tell you something, please believe them. If nothing else, give them a benefit of the doubt and research it, investigate first. Even if you don't believe them, at least in your mind, find a way to either prove them wrong, but chances are they're not lying.
Right.
They're telling the truth. Please believe us. It makes a difference. You don't want your daughters to grow up promiscuous. You don't want your daughters to grow up and think there's something wrong with them, these low levels of self-esteem, all the things that I've gone through, all the things that we as victims go through, because when we trusted somebody, when we trusted you, you didn't believe us, and you said it was our fault, or, just don't say anything. It's a secret. It's not a secret. Do you know how damaging that is? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm about to go on a tangent. I'm sorry, Jamie. Okay. But yeah, so I've met your mom. I've met your mom.
Yeah.
And when I shared, your mom came up to me and she was like, if you want to talk, call me. Your mom, she know me from a box of rocks. She came and she was like, if you want to talk to somebody, call me. I would love to talk to you. And she was just that supportive and that open. And she wasn't my mom. She was Jamie's mom. But she knew that I had gone through something. Parents, we need to be like that. We really need to be more like that. And I really tried to do that for my children, even though my sons don't want to talk about sex and stuff like that.
Well, I got to say, I remember when my mom still to this day, I was at her house right before I left here. And every time, makes sure to tell me 3-4 times, how much she loves me and how proud of me she is. And I know this, you know what I mean? And I know, but she makes sure I'm never going to forget, and I never had a doubt in my mind anyway, but I remember being a teenager and being like, Mom, you ain't got to say that in front of all my friends.
I know, right?
Mom, but
Isaiah, are you listening? If Isaiah's in the green room with you and he's not listening, nudge him. Tell him to listen. Listen to Jamie. Listen to his mother.
Well, and I've got a stepson now, and he's 12, and he's getting to that age where, his name's Jay, and we grew up. He grew up with the nickname Boogie, and that was before I ever met my wife or anything like that. His name was Boogie, or the Boog, whatever. And he hit a certain age. He hit a certain age where he was like, "Just please don't call me that at school," And then, and now he's getting to more where it's like, I'll be off with my friend. He needs a parent to come with him to a school event, a movie night or something. And then that parent just sits there while he runs off with all his friends. But I think we could probably stand to be more annoying, letting them know how much we love them. You know what I mean?
My kids say I kiss too much. I want to kiss and hug and say I love you all. That's enough, Mom. That's enough. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I think that makes all the difference in the end. The whole organization I have is based on storytelling, and the whole concept was, let's tell people that they have a place to tell their story. I'll go first. Kind of thing. And I would not have that comfort level of telling my story. I'll tell my story to anyone that'll listen. Because she made sure that I knew I had done nothing wrong.
Right.
She made sure that I knew that people loved me. And she went out of her way to build up just support systems. I had positive males in my life, but even more than that, I just had people around that I knew loved me, whether it was our family, whether it was a church community, whether it was friends, Boy Scouts, whatever it was. She made sure people were there for me, and in turn, once I become a mature adult, now I can look back and recognize all that stuff that she did, and I feel like I have the skills where I can help lead other people to telling their stories because of that, And if she hadn't done all that, I wouldn't have had any of those skills.
A Voice for the Innocent. What's your website?
avoicefortheinnocent.org or just avfti.org. Both of them work.
avfti.org. Now, I wouldn't have even, I'm like, a voice for the... Sometimes it takes a few of us longer than others.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, thank you so much for being here. I want to ask our next guest to come into the studio. Sure. But before you go, thank you for being that male voice, for telling your truth, for actually, you know, not being afraid to say, hey, this happened to me, and I am a manly man, because, you know, men think that if things like that happen, that it's demasculating, and they can't say anything about it, because it makes them less of who they are. And that is so not the case, and I would love for you to join the online community if you're not even ready to get on the couch yet. So we have very similar missions.
Yeah.
It's encouraging people to start sharing their stories so they can start healing and living and moving into life after abuse. So if you are ready to do that, visit avoicefortheinnocent.org and or the KASSIE Project, thekassieproject.org, and find out how you can join a community of supporters of people just like yourselves. So, having said that, Jamie, you know what time it is. It's time to sign the couch.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want to sign the couch. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I might
So,
go with our little tagline there. Oh, I messed it all up.
Oh,
too.
goodness. Well, when we get our next couch, you can sign the next couch, too, if that makes you feel better. And remember, when the KASSIE couch is full of signatures, we honorarily donate it to a help center. We are on our third couch. This is our third couch, so we are very fortunate. And in some ways, I guess I could say unfortunate to have a couch full of signatures of people, you know, who have survived or who have been victims of sexual or domestic abuse. So, of course, if you want to get your signature on a couch, just visit our website and find out where we will be next. Can I get some love?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you.